Welcome to another exciting episode of From Vision to Impact, the podcast where we unpack the stories, strategies, and people driving change at IHM. Today, I am joined by Patrick Banda, or PB as we call him, IHM's Director of People and Operations. At IHM, we don't call it human resources. Instead, we call it talent acquisition and development, and that choice of words is intentional. It's about how we see people, not as resources to be managed, but as talent to be nurtured, developed, and empowered. In this conversation, we'll explore why that shift in language matters, how it shapes our organizational culture, and what it means not only for our staff, but also for partners and stakeholders who engage with IHM. At its core, this is a conversation about people, our values, vision, and the culture we're building together. Welcome to the podcast, PB.
Thank you, Sitna. I'm very excited to be here today.
Okay, so we'll start with the context, naming the purpose. So IHM chose to call it people space, talent acquisition and development, instead of the traditional human resources. What vision or philosophy drove that decision?
Yeah. So as IHM, we're very clear on the fact that the war on talent can only be won by talent. And I think we were very clear also from the get-go that competition is intense, especially among organizations that are doing the kind of work that we do. Everybody's looking for skilled and capable individuals. And then the question then is, how do you operate or navigate in that space? Particularly for us at a time when we were moving from a supportive role to a main awardee that were going to drive the digital health systems in Zambia. And so our philosophy then around talent management was one that was anchored on learning and development as well as creativity. And that is why then we told ourselves that we need to focus on bringing in talent, but also nurturing that talent to ensure that it matures into its full potential to deliver on the mandate that we were embarking on.
Interesting. By choosing this name, what story is IHM telling, both internally to staff and externally to future talent, about its culture and identity?
Yeah, so it's really a story of belief. One that tells that as IHM, we trust our people. We are really guided by the Steve Jobs philosophy of don't hire smart people to tell them what to do, but hire smart people so that they tell you what to do. And for us, that is our identity. We think of ourselves as an institution that is purpose-driven, one that thrives on creativity, one that thrives on giving people autonomy to make decisions at whatever level they are on. And that has been very influential for us, I think, even in the way that we do our work and some of the results that we are producing for this country.
Okay, so let's look at the culture and values that are currently in practice. How does this framing tie into IHM's overall organizational culture?
Yeah, so a very interesting, again, question. And I think for us, when we think about culture, it really follows through the philosophy that we have just talked about. Very important was that in 2021, when we became the main awardee of driving digital health systems in Zambia, we asked ourselves a question: do we have the right culture that can deliver on the mandate that we were given? And I think at that time, the answer that we found ourselves was no, we didn't have that culture. And so then we began on a culture transformation journey. And in doing so, we undertook a couple of initiatives. Some of them was, the first thing that we did was to look at our core shared values. Many institutions, you know, that have certain values placed on walls and posters mention them. But if you really see the behaviors, the attitudes, and the languages in those institutions, they are parallel. to the values that they have on their walls. And so we didn't want to find ourselves in such a space. So when we asked ourselves a question, do we have the values, shared values, that can drive our organization forward? When we did a values audit, we realized that our values were misaligned with where the organization was at, but also where the organization intended to go. And as a result of that, we came up with new values that I think I'll be happy to talk to as we go. Further than that, we also looked at our structure, organizational structure. The question again was, do we have a structure that responds to the work that we were embarking on and the things that we wanted to do? So we went on conducting a job evaluation and a grading exercise that helped us then come up with a proper structure, indicating clearly what sort of skills we needed and what sort of people we needed and at what level. That also helped us position ourselves to be able to deliver on the results. Critical also was to think about the talent that we had. Was it talent that was well skilled to do the work that it needed to do? And to answer that question again, we embarked on another scientific approach of conducting competence assessments. Obviously, the first thing we did was to come up with a competence framework that we thought as IHM, there are certain levels that we wanted people to perform at and certain competences that people must have. And so we embarked on a 360 competence assessment that led into a skills gap analysis that was very influential in coming up with our learning and development plan. And so when we began to develop certain skills, we were not developing these skills out of emotions and we just felt like developing them. There was a scientific process that was undertaken to come up with that. And all those different initiatives, including other things that I couldn't have mentioned, were very critical then for us to embark on a cultural transformation that we wanted. And truly, because of that cultural transformation that we've been on, we've seen an organization that is now a learning organization, an organization that has really promoted leadership at any level, an organization that really amplifies and rewards creativity, among other things. And that's the sort of a culture that we've come up with. It's not a compliance culture, but a culture that promotes learning, a culture that promotes creativity, a culture that promotes independence of thought at any level of the organization.
At IHM, we often talk about values guiding the way we work. If you had to describe the values that truly shape how people show up here, what would they be?
Yeah, so we, like I said when we started, when we did our values audit, we came up with a whole new set of values that really were positioned to help us with what we wanted to achieve then, but also with the future that we wanted to see for IHM. And so there are three values that I really want to talk to today that I think really shape in terms of how people show up in this place. The first value is that we are all leaders in IHM and not sheep. What this means is that as an institution, we have been very deliberate about promoting leadership at any level of the organization. So leadership in IHM is not about a position. Leadership in IHM is about the way we think, the way we do our work. And creativity for us is not something that comes from the top to the bottom. Creativity for us is one that moves from the bottom to the up, or from bottom to up. And at any level, we promote that leadership. For example, our office assistant today, if they find that you are just leaving your cups anyhow and anywhere, there's nothing that stops that office assistant to call me to order and say, guys, we have a kitchen where our dirty cups must be. So if you finish using your cup, please just be kind enough and take it to the kitchen. That's the sort of leadership that we are promoting in the organization. So at any level, we have promoted that in terms of the way of thinking about leadership. The second one is that in IHM, we live by open door policy. And with this, I mean literally that we do not have doors and offices here. If you walk around here, or even our other office at UTH, you find that it's one big office that doesn't have any doors. Interestingly, you may want to know that for the last 5 years that I've been here, I've never had an office. And often when I talk to my colleagues in the HR space, they ask me, but PB, how do you have confidential conversations with people that want to raise issues on HR matters? But believe it or not, I kind of find that nowadays, and since I've never had an office, I've had more conversations with employees than the conversations I would have when I had an office and a door. Because right now, I sit anywhere I find a space. anywhere where I'm comfortable to sit. And as a result of that, I'm very much visible to colleagues. I'm very much accessible to colleagues. Nobody has to knock on a door when it's closed and check with me whether I'm free or not. They just walk up to me and say, PB, I want to have a conversation with you. And of course, we have systems around that allow for certain conversations that require isolation. But living by open door policy has really promoted collaboration for us. It has also really promoted the way our team has come together and do the work, because it's easy to consult each other. It's easy to just walk over to another person where you need support as such. The third one that I want to talk about is we have a value here that we call we don't blame the cow. And in this concept, what we basically say is we don't blame anybody for anything that goes wrong. What we promote instead is learning. We promote reflection. If something doesn't go according to plan, we ask people to pause and ask themselves certain questions. What happened? What could we have done better to avoid what happened? Going forward, what is it that we've picked in terms of insights, and how can we improve going forward? So here, we know Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and we don't live in oblivion of that. We believe that when something goes wrong, let's not be quick to blame, but let's be quick to reflect. Let's be quick to stop and ask ourselves those questions that I asked. What can we pick out of this experience? And what can we do better going forward? And those values really shape how people show up in IHM, how we do our work, and how we improve on productivity.